on the flip side, you had Hendrick yesterday, I think Cliff Daniels even said on the radio, it's like, yeah, we're all the same. We're all equally sucky. Like, we're all just, sometimes you see that, and then sometimes you see one break away from the other. I think the Gibbs cars, they didn't show what I thought they would yesterday. Now, Truex was on a completely different strategy than everyone else, all the other Gibbs cars yesterday. But, I mean, I never saw Seabell. Did he have any issues? Not that we can. Not really, right? And Ty was, hanging around at the back end of the top 10. So he's running where he should, for sure. But usually that's a Gibbs or a Hendrick track, and it wasn't. It was really a 2311 and RFK track yesterday.
Seabell did have a speeding penalty.
That'll do it.
Yep.
That'll do it. It was under green or yellow. That's a factor. You just cannot speed under green. The penalties are just too huge to do it. It's too hard to pass.
Not speeding, but your driver, Tyler Reddick, missed the commitment cone under green.
Hand in face emoji. They really struggle to finish, kind of like what they're capable of. Now, again, they did it at Pocono, but the mistakes is just killing the 23 and 45. And I saw the 23 had a long pit stop. I mean, you can overcome that. It was under green as well, but he lost a few positions, but then just kind of started bleeding some spots late in the day. But it looked like they maybe lost a handle of their car as well, which we did in the middle, but then towards the end, we got our handle back where it needed to be. So it's hard.
Bell started at the rear at the final stage.
Okay, so it was under caution.
Yeah.
Well, why was he 2 laps down? Just ran bad?
I don't know.
You go laps down when you're...
Yeah. I know they struggled in practice, but yeah, I mean, very uncharacteristic, I think, of the Gibbs cars in general. It wasn't a Gibbs and Hendrick day for sure. So I think that, RFK and 2311 showed the way for the most part of the race, and I think the fastest car won. I mean, it's hard to dispute it.
What changed between spring and now? Because like you said, not only were the Gibbs and Hendrick cars not the class of the field today, like they were in the spring. Hendrick car won the race in the spring. But also looking at Jeff Gluck's was it a good race poll, this race is hovering around 50-50, whereas the spring race was 80-20.
I don't know.
Like, what changes other than the weather?
Yeah, nothing. Nothing really changed. I think it's just the flow of the race. Do we have cautions? And how does the finish? I mean, the race could have gone completely green, and then, maybe it's 45% or something. But I think it's just sometimes it's the flow of the race. And sometimes in that type of racing, you're going to have cars that hit the setup. And I'll say this too. Here's what I think about it, is that in the second race, the field gets closer together. I think in the first race of the season, at any given track, the field is more spread. There's got to be some sort of scientific proof on this, that in the second race, when people make adjustments, the fast guys don't get faster the second time around. They typically maintain, maybe get a skosh better. But the tail end of the field, who was way off in left field the first time around, gets better. They learn, and then when they come back, they go like this. They tighten it up. Well, what happens when the field tightens up? There ain't much passing because everyone starts to run equal. So I think that probably played a factor. I would argue to say probably that there was less green flag passes. Mike Ford, NASCAR, let's give us some stats on that. There had to be less green flag passes than what we've had in the spring. But it's because everyone's the same. I mean, it was so hard to pass lap cars that you started with, and they were 3/4 of a mile behind you. You now get behind them, and all of a sudden you lose 2-3 tenths of speed. Like, it was so hard to pass. And there's just not a whole lot of explanation of why. I mean, I think we know why, but who knows, right? I mean, they're working on this new short track package. I'll stay optimistic until it proves otherwise, but we got some work to do. I think that, it's hard to put this one on Goodyear. The tire fall off was around a second and a half by the end of the race. So it's tough. It's just these cars don't have much downforce, and when you put it behind another car, it loses so much grip.
With what you just said about teams getting better and more equal on the second time around to a track makes me think that it would be a good experiment next year or whatever year to go to one race at tracks like Richmond, where you're not seeing a great fan turnout, where you're not seeing great racing time after time. It seems like that's worked at some tracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's data to be had. Where's Jeff Gluck's poll on races, on number 2 races? Now, some of them, like Martinsville 2, usually is
it's because,
far and above.
Yeah,
because
circumstances.
Because of the circumstances, the
Yeah.
stakes, and people were more aggressive for whatever reason. Daytona 2, Daytona 500, people were riding in a line for most of the day. Daytona 2, you've got 20 guys that this is their last shot, right?
It's way different.
It's way different.
Way
So
different track,
maybe you
circumstance,
can't use
everything.
the data you have to individualize it. But it's certainly tracks like this, the field gets closer together because that's just the way it works.
So last year, Richmond 1 was 63%. Richmond 2 was 70.
Yeah.
Martinsville 1 was 18.
Oh, it was bad.
Martinsville 2 was 78. Darlington 2 was a 93.
That was the wall ride, the wall ride.
And
versus not.
Darlington 1 was 86.
The thing is, though, all those tracks that you just mentioned, other than Richmond, are good tracks. Racing at Darlington is consistently good.
Yeah.
The second race at Martinsville is consistently good for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I certainly am. I'll die on the post that the field gets tighter, passing gets more difficult. So it's just, I mean, there was many times that because of the strategy the 11 car had of us staying out a little bit longer, I would gain 2-3 tenths on the cars in front of me. But as soon as I get to them, it's like a roadblock. You can't get around them. You can't buzz through them like you used to. So it's just so different. And I don't necessarily know what the exact answer is. I mean, if you look at the platform of the race cars, we got our noses up because we got to feed the back of the diffuser to make downforce, which that makes them plow in traffic. I don't know.
I want to read Brad Kozlowski's post-race comments real quick because I thought they were interesting. I want to get your take on them. He said, from the driver perspective, when we dropped the green at the start of stage 2, I was just digging. I'm in the background going, oh, God, don't let this go long green flag run because I knew I burnt the rear tires off the car. By nature, this couple paragraphs down now, by nature, that means you just have races with long runs because everyone will sell out for the short runs. Then the racing gets dramatically worse. When everybody in the field can sell out for short runs, you never see any passing, comers and goers. Start the air pressures high, do all these different things, have the car sideways loose. To me, that is the worst racing you're ever going to see. So he's actually saying these long green flag runs yesterday, from a driver's perspective, was good for racing.
Yeah, and I said in my media after the race that, like, if you're a racing purist, you like this type of racing because there's strategy in it. This Richmond is the closest to an F1 race you'll possibly find, just because strategy is such a big part of it. Now, our racing is way more competitive than F1, even when it is strung out. But it's that type of race where you're going to have to really enjoy the strategy to enjoy the race. If you're looking for side-by-side, beating and bang, it's just that's not the track. It just isn't, because we are fighting different things that you don't see inside the race car. So I think NBC does a really good job of they painted the picture of the strategy, what's going on, who's going long, who's going short. This person should come to this. They could probably do some more projections of here's where we think this person will come out because they went long or because they went short.
Sell the strategy. Make people care about
pretty
the
much
strategy.
gotta really sell it. but it's super difficult to do. I get it. So, and I also agree, Brad said too, that you got to have tracks like this on our schedule because it's a different type of technique. Sometimes you need to be good on road courses. Sometimes you need to be good on super speedways. But this type of racing is a different discipline. And if you want to truly crown your champion or show who the best drivers, stock car drivers in the world are, you got to put them on different type of disciplines. And sometimes this type of racing, you'll see drivers that are super fast, not excel at this type of racing because it's a different type of discipline for sure.
Not to go down this rabbit hole, but you did respond to Dale Jr. on Twitter. He said the top groove looks like it needs some resin.
Oh, God.
You said,
yuck.
Isn't that just a Band-Aid?
It is. And now, what happened was we would all be running in a train up against the wall and nobody would see us all day. It's not it. I know what he's trying to say, and we're trying to replicate the days of the sealer, but we don't have the same cars as what we had when sealer was around. And what I'm trying to say is that when they paved Richmond, man, this was before my day. This was early 2000s, or maybe it was late 90s. They then put sealer on it afterwards. And so there was a lot of grip in the sealer. So as the cars ran one line, they wore the sealer off. Then they kept moving up the racetrack to chase more sealer. It was almost like resin. But again, the cars are different. The drivers are smarter. There's no refuting that because we have more data. We're not smarter naturally because we were born that way. We're smarter because we have more information and data that help us be faster and smarter. So what will we do if you put up one lane of resin around the racetrack? We're going to run in that one lane around in a train. And it's just, it would not, I just don't think it would work. Again, I think you're going to have to appreciate this type of racing to really appreciate it, or you're going to just say, this is ridiculous and I hate it, which I understand both arguments, but in my opinion, I agree with Brad. You've got to, if you want to challenge us in many disciplines, this is just a different discipline you got to be better at.